Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. How's it going?
Good morning.
We're trying to keep Steve in line. He's making lots of noise.
Yeah. Well, at least I'm here.
Well, you're kind of here. You're kind of
Sort
here.
of.
So,
Sort.
sort of maybe.
Sort
Why
of.
don't you do the rundown, Steve?
I see Claude. I see Dennis. I see Jerry. Romper, bumper, stomper, boo. Tell me, do.
Uh,
I could take a guess who's here, but I don't know.
yeah.
Take a
No,
guess.
don't be looking at the screen. Be watching where you're going.
Yeah. Yes, dear.
You know who's here, the usuals.
Yeah, we
The
got the
Eagles.
usual.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, Jerry, you can read them if you want. If you don't want to, we won't do it. But
All right. We got Wigwag, Almar, John Dawson, Grandpa Rouse, Rob T. Moon, uh, Otter Creek, Lynn McCurdy. I saw Container Man, CDP Chuck, Bernard, Sparky, Steve 87, Scott Baker, TB Minnow. Is he new? Are you new? Ray Burleson.
no, I don't think he's new.
No,
Okay.
no. I think we teased him that he was the SS minnow.
Oh, okay.
It's
Jeff
been a while.
Thornton. Jeff Thornton. Rod Stewart.
We got
Rob Stewart's here.
Digger
Cool.
Evans. I see
He's a
Digger
model railroader.
Evans. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get him on the show.
Oh man, wouldn't that be something?
Joe G. What's up,
Hey
Joe G?
Joe,
Hey,
what's
yeah.
up, buddy?
Floyd Robbins. I think we're coming to an end. Jack, King of the Knuckleheads. Chris Brew.
Hey Chris.
And that's it, I think. Yep.
Hey, and Joe, I'm sorry I didn't write back until the end. That's the only bad thing about writing to the Back on Track email is I get it, but I don't usually look at it until I'm setting the show up because I could go in there any other time. But like I said in the email, you're welcome to come on the show anytime.
Oh yeah,
Steve misses you.
we do. Yeah, he's one of the grandfathers of Back on Track.
Is it just me, or is Claude extremely loud and everyone else
Am I
is
really loud? Hang
super
on.
quiet?
Really loud. I had to lower my volume.
Yeah, I had to lower mine too.
Oh, yes, I am.
Claude is
Is
like
that,
screaming at us.
is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I can turn my volume up. Maybe I can hear everybody.
It's called old age, Dennis.
No, I think have you got a lapel mic on?
No, it's just
No?
earbuds. But I had it turned all the way up.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had another setting somewhere, and I don't even remember where it was now, that was way down low, and I couldn't hear anybody last week. So I moved everybody up to the far end of the scale so I could hear you. And then this morning I noticed it's really loud, so I was pulling everybody back down on scale and forgot that I was up there. You should have said something before the show.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we all had professional setups with the big mics
Yeah,
Not going there. No.
we'd be a Saturday morning podcast.
If we
Isn't
were
that
making,
what we are?
But very few of them do really sound good with those big mics.
yeah, and it's a lot of money. So if you're not doing it full time, I can understand the full time podcasters setting up like that, and they sound a lot more professional. But they've got some high dollar equipment that they're using. And
See,
I'm not going there.
I've got all of the equipment. It's just in a box, but I'm not going to break it all out just for this show.
That's because you're fancy.
Well, why don't you use it for your videos too?
I am using a professional level microphone for my videos.
So why don't you use that mic for these too?
there's built-in latency that I would have to figure out, and I it's one of those things I haven't quite figured out yet, how to interface it with StreamYard in a way that I don't look like I'm in a Japanese or Chinese Wappa Choppa film where it just sucks,
Yeah, okay.
Am I still really loud?
My stuff has to run through an
No.
interface before it hits StreamYard, and
No, you're fine.
Okay. Well, Sparky said I just need to move the mic away, and if I did that, I'd have to take the earbuds out and do it. Put them in another room or something. You are a bit loud. Okay.
yeah, you still are, but it's better than it was.
Yeah, it's okay.
How's that? More better?
Yeah,
More better.
More better.
Okay.
It's more better.
Now I got to turn my volume up.
Well, I'm loud. I'm loud anyway, so
It's all right.
you
Go
probably
get
hear me without a mic on.
used to it.
Sparky says that's perfect.
Okay.
So, Claude, how's the layout coming?
It's in boxes, a lot of it. Not a lot. Well, yeah, a lot of it. You don't realize how much you put on a layout until you start taking it off and have to find some place to put it.
Yeah, especially when
boxes.
it's built.
Yeah, I've got several boxes that are crammed with buildings, and of course I'm trying to keep the scenes together, which is not easy to do, that I've already kind of created. Keep those all together so I can recreate them.
You think,
Okay.
are you going to use all your buildings, 90%, 80%?
At this point, I don't know, Jerry.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm concentrating on getting stuff taken down and getting out of there. Stuff like
Do you
that.
even have a track plan for the new
Not yet.
proposed build?
Not yet.
Not
I've
even
got
an
some that
idea
I'm.
in your head other than it will rip
Well,
back and
yeah,
forth?
very vague, very vague. Let me. Maybe I can do it this way. I'm going to try and keep them on like a 4x8, 2 4x8s or something in that range. So this is out of the 101 track plans. So something like, oops, wrong way. There we go. Which one am I looking at? Something like this one.
Okay.
On one side, maybe, and then something similar to that on the other side. I really don't know yet. I may put like an oval with a full town maybe on one half, and then something like this with mines and stuff on the other side. And then I can wheel them and put them against the wall when I'm working on them. Wheel one out, work all the way around it at any given time, and then bring them together with a small, drop in or something in between them so that makes a bigger layout, makes a U-shaped layout. That's the plan right now, but I haven't really sat down with a plan yet. Because I don't want to get ahead of myself. I know if I start building something downstairs, I won't get upstairs done. And I got to get that done, at least almost done before I start anything downstairs. The biggest problem right now is stuff that I want to keep, having a place to put it. Because the shop will only hold so much. And then, of course, if I get it too full, I won't have any room to build anything. So,
Can you put stuff where you are? Can you put boxes the room where you are now?
Oh, I could, yeah.
Yeah. Just for
I could. Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the boxes full of buildings and rolling stock and all that, because I've got shelving in the shop that a lot of that's on. But I'm talking about any lumber or anything that I can salvage.
Okay.
From the layout, because most of that is not glued together. Most of it's just screws. So it can be taken apart and used again if I can. I just
Right.
don't know how much of that'll happen. Now, most of the decking, any of the stuff that's a deck is going to be, cost.
Yeah.
But I still have track to get up, and I'm going to try and save some rail and save some of that stuff, and maybe save some of the turnouts. Although I'm entertaining over, especially if I do a mining district, of going all stub turnouts, so I can go a little shorter turnouts.
Stub turnouts. Okay.
Instead of having moving points, the lead rails, instead of having points that move back and forth inside the stock rails, a stub rail, a sub switch is the lead rails move back and forth. Okay, so you don't have points, and it saves you some space, lateral, length, so you can get more in.
Never heard of
With the longer frog, you can still use like a number 6 frog, but get a shorter turnout in than you could with points.
Do they work good?
Yeah, if you build them right, they will. I've got one on my layout now. Now it's a number 4, but it's a manual control, which I plan on doing on all of them, or hope to. Just depends on how the layout ends up.
Use the same jig?
Yeah, use the same jig. You just modify it some.
A stub turnout.
Yeah. Look them up. Look them up on Google. You'll see. And they were usually used on narrow gauge up in the mountains,
Right.
where they had space limitations. So
you could use them on a regular layout.
You could. You could.
Standard gauge.
Yeah. If you have the room, points are better, I think. But you could do a stub turnout.
Yeah.
Anywhere. They're a different beast when you go to build it. Right. Because you've got to leave those lead rails coming in flexible enough on the end.
I dropped a link
back and forth.
I dropped a link in the chat that you could go to and take a look at some track work.
Yeah. They're kind of cool looking if you like track work, complicated track work. And not that they're complicated, but they're different than regular. Because they don't have the points, and you don't need that length for the points, your lead rails coming in that move back and forth can come up, real close to the frog, comparatively speaking. So you save some space that way. But I would do it more for the historical factor of it than for the space saving.
Right.
Because there's not going to be 1,000 turnouts on anything I do. Definitely not as many as I have now. Because it won't be near that big. But anyway, so yeah, I'm saving everything I can save off of it. I'm just thankful stuff like the brewery and what else did I had another one that I didn't glue down. Oh, the slaughterhouse. Both of those buildings are fairly complicated structures and they're fairly delicate. So I was glad that I hadn't glued them down to the surface. And most of the buildings that I did glue down, I just used 1 or 2 little dabs of that E6000.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that stuff, it stretches pretty well. And once you get it up off the deal, then you can take your fingers and pull it all the way off the model without breaking stuff.
Right.
Unlike CA or wood glue or something like that, where you're not getting that off.
You're not getting that off.
Yeah. So that part's come along so far. I've got there's a couple of places where I'm thinking if I cut it out, somebody might want it for a diorama. I don't know if there would be anybody would be interested in that.
You never know.
One of them is the lake, the water feature I put in, because that turned out pretty well, I thought. And you could do a pretty good little diorama with that if somebody wanted. Everything else is pretty tough to do for a diorama. Because even after I got the fascia off of the mining district, I realized I don't think I could get that out of there in one piece without just tearing everything up. I didn't build it to come out.
Right.
In other words, now it's not stuck to the wall. It's sitting on 2 bys that are coming up off the lower bench work.
Right.
But I didn't build a box frame to set it on to start with. Now it's a cookie cutter. The track work, the bench work, I mean, not the bench work, the sub road bed is a cookie cutter. So it comes in and it comes up here and then it switches back. And that I just came in and sawed it and then took the plywood and just, moved it this way and got my grades on it, which is a really easy way to do grades. And it gives you a nice smooth transition usually if you don't try to jack it up too high. But the bench work underneath it is I pieced it in and then came in and set that down on top of it. So I don't know if I could get that off in one piece or not. It would make a good little shelf layout, but it doesn't have a lot of track on it. So it'd end up being a diorama basically. That's the one place that it really kills me is going to lose that because I liked how it turned out.
Well, you can make it better.
I got it blended in with the backdrop and all that really well. And
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, your next one, you could just make it better.
well, I can try, but I'm not going to have any backdrops on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I want to be able to get to both sides of it. If you put a backdrop in, then you're reaching over. That
You
kills the
won't.
purpose
You
of being
won't
able
have
to move
a
it.
divider. You won't have a center divider.
I might. I might. It just depends.
Yeah.
It may be more that each table is its own entity, and then I'll be able to put them together to have a longer run, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Are we getting questions over here? I'm not watching the chat.
Talking about sheds and chickens, I think.
Sheds.
More common than you think, but not in Claude's upscale neighborhood. Yeah, you have chickens around here, you'd probably get an HOA notice. Riverside, you build is going to be a job on.
True
Yeah,
story,
exactly.
especially on tracks.
Yeah,
What's
exactly, Jack, and that's what I'm going to try and keep at a minimum is maintenance. I want to get a track plan before I start, at least really close, so that when I build it, I can do like Dennis did, and what I did on the top deck on the plan I've got now is take that after I get the track on it, flip it upside down, and do the wiring, and have that all bulletproof, so I don't have to mess with it anymore. Then the only thing that I'd have to wire would be any lights or something like that if I put those in. If I just put a long enough lead on them, then I can lead them to the front of the, one side of the table or the other, and hook them to a bus line. So that's the plan. But I'm still, I'm still quite a ways out. We've got this big trip in summertime. We're going to be gone for almost a month, and so I'm going to lose a month of time of doing that. But it just depends on how fast I get upstairs done as to how quick I'll start on anything else.
So, Dennis, like, you're running trains. What kind of upkeep are you doing on your track now? Like, do you need to?
Just as a matter of fact, I was just thinking about this when someone brought up the up. It was Jack, I think, brought up the up. I had to resolder 2 of my throw bar points day before yesterday, which it's one of those things that, we were talking about stubs, and I wonder, the distance your stubs need to move, because your flanges, I don't think, have to make the same kind of clearance. Maybe they do, I don't know, but where this motion right here on your points, where your solder, you can't pivot, right? Your point can't pivot. So every time that goes back and forth, because it can't pivot, it's working on the solder on the rail. And I'm afraid that no matter what you do, eventually that solder is going to pop. And so that's something that I'm trying to come up with a solution. Is there a way to work around that? And I have noticed that the longer the point, like my number 8s, it don't tend to happen on near as bad because you've got a longer pivot point, so they don't. But on the number 6s, because the the points are closer to the frog, there's more deflection, and I think the answer is probably to use hinged points, because now you're hinged here, and so there's going to be less twisting of the point on the throw bar. So I don't know. It was one of those things. I wish I would have known that to begin with. When I first started, I might have gone with the hinge points on everything just for that reason. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd notice it if you do a curve with hinge points on it, and then compare it to one that's a solid point. It's not even, there's no comparison. It works so much better. If you look at it really close, it doesn't look really good, but
that was the whole reason I didn't go with the hinges.
Me too.
Is because I wanted it to look like a real turnout. But ultimately, how good your turnout is far more important than what it looks like. And so I don't know. Something I'm working, because the last 2 or 3 I've built, I've put a pin that is curved over the base of the rail, and then so I've got solder all over the top of it. I'm hoping that might help, but I don't think it will solve the problem. It might make the solder joint last longer. I don't know, because the Code 70 is really too small to pin through the top, and even then, I think the solder is going to break eventually.
Yeah,
sounds like a pain in the butt.
The only thing
it's not difficult to fix. You know, it for the most part, unless it's in a place you can't get to, it takes less than 30 seconds to fix it. It's just a matter of resoldering the joint, and then you're good to go pretty quick. Now,
Jack says he has to solder them every month.
Do what?
Jack says he has to work on them every month.
Work on what?
His switches.
I wouldn't say I haven't had to do it every month for sure. But
Well, maybe you don't run as much as him. Though.
Yeah, he runs a lot.
Right.
He runs a lot, and there again, it also depends on how they're setting, and you know what you're running over them. You know, the narrow gauge stuff, you don't have to worry about weight, even with weighted cars. You know, weights, you're not going to get anything heavy enough to bother it with weight. It's strictly the
why would weight? What would weight do to him?
I don't know, but that's what he said in that first one, was because of the weight of his engines. Digger says he has to resolder every month because of his weight. Oh, he has to resolder because of his weight. Yeah, that's what he said. I can't see how that would be a problem, but you know, who am I to say it's not happening because I don't lay out. But I'm thinking the only solder you're going to be able to put on those points, or that would not break off, would be silver solder, and I'm not talking about soft silver solder. I'm talking about stick silver solder that you have to braze on, or almost braze on. You have to use matte gas, and that would probably melt your rail as you're trying to braze it on. So that would be, it's a plumbing application kind of solder.
Right.
Yeah. And that won't break. That won't come off. That's like doing a regular brass brazing, copper brazing. But I don't know that the rail would handle the heat. Plus, most people don't have the stuff to do that with or know how to use it. So,
yeah,
any kind of soft solder is going to be subject to movement and finally given up. It's just a matter how you did it. How, you know, if you tried to be real frugal with the solder at the point, which is ideal, so it doesn't interfere with your flanges. But there again, the less you use, the faster it's going to come loose. The good thing is they're easy to fix.
Do they make
even
solder?
on the lab.
Do they make a harder solder?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like what Claude is saying is I think think Gerald was asking. I'm using the same stuff that Fast Tracks recommended. I'm using 60-40.
Yeah.
Whatever those numbers mean. The SN to the PB40, SN 60-40. I guess it's silver to, I don't know if it's lead or or tin, silver and tin maybe, I don't know. But if there's something that would be better, someone drop it in there, because that is a concern. That is a concern I have, because pinning them, I don't know. I mean, Boomer pins his, but I think on the ones, I don't know whether it seems to me like the ones that he did were code 83, but I could be misremembering.
When you're saying pinned, I'm not familiar with.
I don't have any rail next to me, but so you've got the base of the rail, you got the web here, and then you've got the base. Literally drill a hole through the base of the rail, through the throw bar.
Okay. So like you were spiking it.
Then you've got a little lip over the top of your phosphorus bronze pin, and then you solder all of that in, which I don't know. I've got a small enough drill bit, but it just looks to me like there's no way that I can drill through the code 70. Maybe I'm just not as good a craftsman as someone who can. I don't know. What I've done is I've just gone down beside the base of the rail and create this, which I think does help. So if your actuator is pushing into the rail, then it gives a solid stopping point that you're adding a little strength as you push into the rail. But as it comes this way, you've still got the whole twisting motion, which I think is the problem, is the culprit.
Yeah. And you're right. The shorter the turnout, the more that's going to happen.
Yeah.
The longer the turnout you got, the smoother the operation is going to be, and the smoother the running of equipment. But the problem us modelers have is the space to put in a longer turnout for prototypical.
Yeah. And what I may end up doing is going ahead, and if I have one break and pop, if it's on a number 6, pull it, cut the points off, and recreate the points on a hinge. I don't know. Problem is one of those is going to have to be curved, and I don't know getting it. I've got the jig, right? So I should be able to recreate that curve in the jig and do it.
Yeah. Well, even with a sub switch and using the lead rails to move back and forth, you still end up with the same problem. Now, the good thing about that is you can use several PCB ties at the very end of that, so that you have a lot more strength there. But you're still doing the same thing. You're moving that rail, and it's torquing that rail.
Well, but my thought is that you might be moving it less.
Yeah, it depends on how you build it. Now, mine's a number 4, the one I did it on.
And how far back you hinge it. There would be no end, kind of, so to speak, how far back you hinge it. As long as everything underneath it kind of floated too.
Yeah, it has to.
You could make a number 4 with a hinge point related to a number 10, right?
Yeah. You could, so you would have less movement in the end. I mean, I could take you up and show you mine, but there again, I did it on a whim, and I needed a turnout for that, or I wanted a little siding next to that mine that's on the bottom that I used it on, and I just put in a push-pull manual switch on it, or manual control on it, and it's a pretty good throw. But there again, it was my first try at it. I didn't redo it. Most of my trying to do it, I didn't read anything on how to do it. I had just seen pictures of it, and I knew the concept. So if I'd have read up on it or something, studied it, I might could have come up with something a little bit better, but it worked. I mean, it works just fine. But you're right, having a longer pivot point, even on a stub switch, would make it much smoother. There again, it's going to depend on how close you want the stub to the fork. I mean, to the frog. The closer you get to the frog, the wider that rail is going to be apart, so you got to move it further. But if you have a longer hinge point, then you can do that, and you still save the space. I'm not reading. Are you reading chat? Anybody reading chat here?
Yeah, it looks like they're talking about Jack and the NMRA and whether or not we run our railroads prototypically, just at a glance.
Well, I guarantee you, probably 75% at least do not run prototypically, even if they're trying to.
There would be no way I could, because I don't even know what it looks like. So therefore, I know I'm doing wrong all the time. So yeah. I'm just enjoying my layout.
Yeah, unless you're somebody
I think looks prototypical.
Unless you're somebody like Steve or Dave Todd, somebody like that that's worked on the railroad, chances are you're not going to know all the ins and outs of running prototypical. Right. You can look at videos and all that kind of stuff and probably get close, but chances are if you were to take a test, if they were to test you on how you're moving cars and what you're doing,
yeah,
you probably couldn't.
Of course, I think it also depends on, like in my era, I think safety was, I mean, I think there were safety first signs in the 30s and 40s, but I think it was kind of an afterthought. I don't know, but I presume that, you know, I think rules today now are you have to come to a complete stop before you can get on and get off, things like that, where they used to do.
Oh, they didn't used to do that, no.
On the fly and really crazy, dangerous things.
Daniel says the trouble comes when you run a stub right into another stub and then another. Yeah, that's true.
There's probably no way you could do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it makes it much tougher, especially in model situations, because you're trying to condense space.
Yeah. In some places it would work. In other places it just, you know, like in a yard, you wouldn't have the option of running any stubs. Your first one.
Yeah, you can. In Como, I know in Como they had three-way stubs. So that was one way they eliminated that problem. The trick with a model and doing a three-way is making the indents where it would stay, say, in the center. Yeah. It's not hard with one you go back and forth. I was using one of the bullfrog, not bullfrog, what do they call them? Anyway, one of the little laser cut plywood manual switches for fast tracks is what I use. Yeah, I use one of those, and it's got an indent on both ends. Now I don't think they make one for a three-way, so that would be a little tougher situation to figure out how to do that. Not that it couldn't be done, but I know they had
notching it somehow, some way on your throw.
Yeah, and I know they had three-way stub turnouts, so that was one way they got around that.
You can do it with the servo as well, because servos and Arduinos, there's a way that you can stop it at a certain distance, but I think it would be extremely fiddly and electronic-y.
Yeah. Well, we used to do stuff like that with our airplanes, but you could program it into your radio, and it would travel just so far. Like when guys had flaps, they could do half flaps and full flaps, and they could move it, put it wherever they wanted. But you can't do that manually on something like that, obviously. But you know, that's one of those problems you get to work on and try to figure out. You know, if you really want something like that.
Yeah, that's what I want for semaphores. If I put semaphores on the layout, I would have to go with a servo that could stop midpoint, unless I just do easy. You just either go or stop. I might do that. I haven't decided. That would be the easiest solution. You occupy this block, stop, whatever it is, and then once the block is clear, it's green go, no yellows.
But you're using something that you could probably do that with. You can program that in electronically.
Yeah, as far
Whereas
as
a lot of guys can't.
see, that would be easy. The difficult part is the mechanical issue involved in stopping a semaphore halfway. That's where the issue is.
Yeah. What else we got here?
Heath's here.
He's here? I knew I
Yeah.
smelled something. I just didn't know what it was.
Trying to figure out why he's not engaging in an operating session. I thought that's what he did every Saturday morning, was have 3 or 4 guys over and run car cards and waybills.
Well, maybe because it's Easter.
Maybe later in the day.
Dennis, you should try LCC. That would work for you.
I might do that. I might do that.
Leave it to Heath to point out the obvious.
I am trying the car cards and waybills. I am doing that digitally.
Okay. There you go. Stepper motors are designed to stop at specific locations. Yeah, they use the stepper motors on pinball machines a
Turntables.
lot. Yeah. Turntables, same thing, yeah. Oh, he said he had an op session last night. We don't need any more information on that, Heath.
I tried to have an op session night before last. That's when I ended up.
And she said no?
Do what?
And she said no?
No. That's when I ended up having to soldering a couple of points, and I was a little frustrated after I got finished with that and just called it a night.
Yeah.
But I am liking the digital car card and waybills. I'm enjoying that. It seems to work pretty good.
Well, especially with a larger layout like that, it would, it gives you someplace to go. Physically gives you someplace to go.
You see what
very
Gerald
similar.
Stewart says about solder?
Throw that up, Claude.
SN63 PB37 called.
Very narrow tip range.
Softer it goes. I've not heard of that, but then.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it's much different than what I'm already using. Would there really be that much difference between 6040 and 6337?
The only way you're going to
I
find
wouldn't
out
have
is
a
try
clue
it.
to even guess.
Try it.
Yeah, I'd be willing to try it.
Well, there are all kinds of solders out there for sure, because I went through like 3 of the little ones from Fast Tracks at the start, and I thought, man, something's got to give here, because those were $8-9 for 15 feet, and so I ended up buying a big roll. Cost me $39 or something like that. And
That's what this is like. I don't know if that's a half a pound or a full pound.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I figured I would never run out of this.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
what I might do is email Fast Tracks and say, hey, this is a thing. I know I'm not the only one that deals with this. What do you guys suggest? And see if they have anything different.
Yeah.
So this is solder that I use, but I'm not doing turnouts.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah,
what
that's what he just said.
Yeah.
Gerald just put up.
And I just bought this by chance. I mean,
and that's a rosin core flux, right? I mean, a rosin core solder. It said something about flux on it. 2.2% flux. It's got to be a rosin core. Could be an acid core solder, but you don't see that very much.
I have no idea. Where'd I get it?
Rosin cores for electronic work, so it doesn't corrode the metal.
Acid will. I think I might have got this at that place where Cousin Vinny used to get his wire from, All Electronics.
That's where I used to get all my stuff too. They went belly up though.
Oh, did they?
Definitely. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Digger says, yeah, that's expensive stuff. Millionaires use that solder.
Dennis, you want me to send you some of this? I'll send you some. You can try
No,
it.
that's fine. I mean,
I'll never use all this.
that's okay.
Well, see, I
I'll see.
wouldn't use a rosin solder on track work.
No?
I'll use acid solder if it'll work better for that application, and you can always clean it off. The electronic is what it's harder to clean it off electronics, especially on a board or something. So
What
that's
does
why
that-
you want to use
There's resin. There's rosin in here.
probably.
Oh,
Does it
okay.
say rosin core?
If you're not using flux with it, you're just using the solder. If you're not using any other flux with it and just using that solder and it's sticking, then that means it's got rosin core or acid core in
It should
the
say
core
if
of
it's
the
rosin
solder.
core right on the label. You should be able.
It should smoke. It should smoke when you start to melt it.
I do
One
use
thing about
flux.
that rosin core is it smokes really bad.
I do use flux. I don't know. I never knew that there was a difference. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going by what the label says. It doesn't say it's a rosin core, but seeing that 2.2% flux
It
kind of
means it,
tells me that it's
Yeah.
probably got a rosin core in it.
right.
Yeah, that tells you right there. There's flux in it. If there's 2% flux in it, there's flux in it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of solders. I mean, like I was going to say, when I bought that roll that I bought, I don't remember where I got it from, but they must have had 50 or 60 different kinds of solder for all kinds of applications. And it all depends on what you're using it on. But for what we're doing, the softer solder is easier to use. The harder the solder, the more heat you got to apply, and the harder it makes it to do anything.
Yeah.
So, especially when you're doing narrow gauge or N scale turnouts, and you put one stock rail on, and you go to the other side to put the stock rail on the other side. If you're using hard solder and got to heat it up real hot, you're gonna loosen the side you've already put on there. So that's the other problem. Use the stuff plumbers use. You need to clean it real good afterward with IP or continued etch into the components. You can use, I use C-Flux for soldering copper when I was a plumber. The stuff Fast Tracks has is pretty close to that, but I just take them when I get done building one, I take it over to the sink and I use some Dawn dishwashing detergent on a toothbrush and I just brush it real good. And
I do
that Dawn
alcohol
will,
first, and then I do that.
yeah, the alcohol will do it, but I find that the Dawn breaks it down pretty well, and I don't have any problem with it. It's when I forget to do that then you find that out in a couple of days it shows up.
Yeah, I don't know no better. It works. I mean,
But seeing then Ray says he uses rosin core. Ray, do you use that on your track work? Because rosin core won't hold as well for something like track work. It'll work, but it won't hold as well.
like
in my experience.
I use that solder when I joined my flex track for my N scale in curves. It holds. I don't
The
know.
rosin, yeah, but those aren't moving.
No.
We're talking about a joint that moves,
Right. Yeah.
and you have some tension and flex to it. That doesn't happen on track work, even on flex track where you've got it curved. You don't have that happening. And except with expansion and contraction in a room that is unheated and cool, then you would have a lot more movement there. But then you don't want to solder as many either. But yeah, it all depends.
What's rosin advanced? Somebody said rosin advanced is the RA. I don't know. I just bought it. It works. I'm not.
So it says that's Bernard says so that's rosin activated. So it's a rosin core solder, which we kind of figured it was anyway. Which is for electronics. That's what you want to use on electronics because it won't continue to eat into the metal.
So
It'll
like
etch it.
turnouts aren't electronics then.
Well, you can use it.
Not
Okay, I use the same solder to do my drops on my track as I used to build the turnout. I just make sure I clean it.
Right.
But that's where you'd want to use the rosin for your wiring onto the track. Then you don't have to clean it. But if you clean
Yeah,
the
so
other,
like,
it's just
I
as good.
plan on using that for my drops.
Yeah, that will work.
Yeah.
But those don't move. See,
Right. Yeah.
they're a static connection, and that's the big difference. You have nothing there; it's just going to sit there and hold it.
Right.
It
Right.
won't just someday come fall apart if you do it right. It won't.
Right.
So it's all there again. It's all about how you put it on there, what kind of application you're doing it, what it's for, as to what kind of solder you need.
Right.
And everything is contingent on how good a job you do for whatever you're using with whatever material you're using. So if it needs to be cleaned, clean it. Don't do it without.
So, but Dennis, you didn't really answer my original question to you.
what was that?
That was how much do you clean your track? Kind of like, and that's what I
Rarely.
equate track maintenance to, is cleaning your track.
Rarely. I mean, I honestly, right now, sitting here, can't recall the last time I set out and said, I need to clean my track today. I haven't.
Well, if you run your trains a lot, you won't need to.
And
They'll
even if I
stay clean.
do clean my tracks, oh wait, here we go. All I will ever use for the most part, and I think I've talked about this before, is this is synthetic squeegee you can get like at AutoZone or O'Reilly's, and I glued it to a block of wood and I just rub it on the track dry. That's usually all I will do.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you guys are concerning yourselves with maintaining your layout and keeping it running. The whole point of having the model train layout is to try to make it derail.
So someone sent me an email. I don't know who it was. The Jag family is who the email came from, asking about the digital waybill and car card system that I'm using. I dropped the link in the chat to where it's at. Eventually, I will do a video on that. I've actually I ran just like a 10-minute train from Grand Junction up to Frying Pan the other day, and I filmed a little bit of how I was using it with no explanation. I want to be able to speak very intelligently about the program before I do a video, so that I'm not either misrepresenting or getting things wrong, so to speak. It's not complicated, but there are things in the setup and stuff like that I need to kind of get in my mind to be able to articulate very well. But I'm enjoying it. So
that's the one that costs money, right?
It does. It does cost money.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
I think the version that I'm using is like $7 a month. I can't remember.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
He's smoking something this morning.
So, and again, I thought, I spend that much on a cup of coffee every day, and not every day, but for sure every week. It's a month. If I can't spend $5 or $7 a month, and it also, it's.
But I remember
a
you
bit of
saying
promoting the hobby. So he put a lot of work into this, and I think it works well. Now, it's not going to work well for everyone. It's not going to meet everyone's needs or what everyone wants out of an operating session. But for some people, I think that it will be, hey, this is cool. I think it would be great for you, Jerry.
Yeah.
I think you might be able to use the free version and enjoy it just using the free version.
Right. Yeah, for me, I don't have that big of a layout.
I'm not sure how I'm supposed to take that, right?
Yeah, I don't think we want to discuss that too much, but that was pretty funny. Uh, yeah, that was pretty good, Ray. Hey, I put tears in my eyes. That was pretty good. Yeah, it all comes down to what you want to spend your money on, and there's things that I'm willing to spend money on, like my backdrops that I put in. I was willing to pay that because I know I couldn't paint them anywhere close to what I wanted.
Right.
So I paid for good backdrops. Got, there's quite a bit of money wrapped up in those backdrops, but I bought them as I went, so it wasn't that big a deal. And I constantly get complimented on. That's one of the things I get complimented on.
So what are you going to do with your backdrops? You going to sell them?
Well, I'm going to try and save as much of them as I can. They're all put up with two-way tape. Now it's a good two-way tape, but I'll get it down on. I don't know. If I find a way to use them, I might. I won't use all of them for sure. I won't have the room, but
I guess are you going to have backdrops on your layout?
If I do, they'll be divider type, dividers. They won't be a full backdrop. They won't be on the edge of the table.
They'll be
because I want to leave the edge. If I use them at all, they'll be in the middle. Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Kind of like Bill did with his mountain. He put his mountain in the middle, and actually had a divider that he hid with trees. But that was his divider. And if I did use it, that's what I would do. But I would have to I'd have to take one of them on one side and have one on the other side.
To me, the one Joey late night model railroad, his car card system looks pretty interesting.
Yeah,
it looks
his looked a lot like. It reminded me a lot of JMRI. There was a lot of similarities between how things kind of worked. I may eventually try that as well if he does, offer, because I think he says he's going to wait and see how much demand there is for it before he offers it as a free download.
Yeah, he did say that, but he also followed up and said there's a lot of demand, so he's going to do it.
Oh, I guess I missed that. So
yeah.
Eventually, I'm going to keep working with what I've got.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. You might as well use it until you can't use it anymore, or till it costs too much to use it. Right.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. I think eventually I will want. Like right now, I've got the whole railroad, but I think there will be at least one or two more locations that I'll need to add, and that will push it to the next price point, which would be a little more difficult for me to make the decision to keep using it. And Heath made a very good point about it too. Is you're dependent upon your internet to run the railroad.
Right.
So if you're in the middle of an operating session and you've got 4 guests, and in my case, we'll say at the very least, someone's probably going to have to drive 4 hours away. My internet drops. All of a sudden, I can no longer have an operating session because you can't access where all of the information is. So that's definitely a consideration if you have sketchy internet.
But couldn't you just make things up as you go? I don't know.
I mean, you could, but the problem is you would have no interface. I've got 85 cars. There's no way I'm going to be able to look at that and go, I know this car's going here, that car's going there. I mean, I guess you could say, hey guys, just drop them in.
Do whatever you want.
Right.
Well, at that point, that's what you kind of have to do, right? I mean, like, I'd be kind of like a little miffed if I drove 4 hours and your internet went out in 20 minutes.
Which, the way mine's set up at the moment, right now my JMRI is good to go. All I would have to do is walk around the layout with my laptop and then put the cars in the computer where they're physically at on the layout. And then I could hit print and have some switch lists ready to go. And that would take me, at this point, maybe 15 minutes of walking around.
Well, see, the fix for the internet going out, if you're having a big gathering of people, is you just break out the bags of ballast and put everybody to work.
All right, the operating session just turned into a work session.
Ballast and track, here we go. Well, we got about 4 minutes left. Anybody else got any questions over there?
Wow, this far with the.
Yeah, it goes. Like I say, it doesn't take us long to get.
Dennis, you're almost done your building.
Yeah. You want to
Yeah.
see it?
No,
Sure.
not really.
No. Okay.
No, we don't want to look at you, Dennis.
Not really. Just making small talk.
Okay, here we go. Uh-oh, I lost my screen here.
Yeah, that little add-on thing there looks pretty cool.
Yeah, when you start putting ladders and
Yeah.
all the little detail stuff on it, they really start coming to life.
Switch
Yeah.
hands.
And they're the ladders and stuff are the things usually on a wood kit that are a real pain in the butt to build.
Yeah, that's an
But-
awesome kit. That is a really
But when
cool.
you get it on there, they sure look good on there. Yeah, and you did it like you did with everything, Dennis. You did a fantastic job.
But like you did a lot of things to that kit that aren't in that kit.
Yeah.
I wonder how it would look if you didn't do all the things that you did to it.
Well, you could probably go online and Google it and find some
Yeah.
pictures of some people who just, painted it.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of things that I didn't need to do that I did. The brick sheet on the brick portion of it. I did not use the peel and stick roofing
Right.
material. So that added time. There's just lots of little different things that I've done. You should do that. Do what on all kits?
Mhm.
I don't know. That's what he said.
Yeah. But,
Make it look that good, I guess.
well, I tried.
Or add extra stuff, maybe.
Yeah, this one, the instructions said it would take a month. I started this in February, if that tells you anything. Now, I think there were four full weekends between February and now that I was not able to model anything. So that's quote unquote a month right there in and of itself. But I only work on it, 2 or 3 days on a weekend, maybe all 3 days on a weekend. But
Sure. So you don't go out there in the evenings when you get home, do you?
No, I don't do anything during the week. If I do anything during the week, it's run a train. I will occasionally come out and say, I've got 30 minutes. I'm going to take, I'm going to pull this track and take it to wherever it needs to go. Sometimes I'll do that.
Yeah. Well, that's our time, guys. We will be back next week, as far as I know. I plan on being here.
Yeah, I think I'll be here.
And maybe we'll get Steve to park his bus for a little bit. I don't think so, but maybe.
He'll be in a bus somewhere next weekend. He will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Joe G, I'm serious, man. If you want to come on the show, just let me know, and we will get you on here. But anyway, everybody, have a good rest of your weekend and a good week, and happy Christmas or happy Easter.
Happy Easter, everybody. Have a good week.
Happy Easter. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week.